Ladies and gentlemen, it is with pleasure that I welcome you all to the Water Accord Sustainable Dairy Year 3 announcement. Thank you for coming today, and we look forward to sharing some great results, as well as talking to you more after the announcement. But now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Minister of Primary Industries and Civil Defence, the Honourable Nathan Guy, to open proceedings. Thank you, Nathan.
Oh, good afternoon, Alistair. Can I acknowledge you as a leader in the New Zealand dairy industry? Tim Mackle, can I acknowledge you as Chief Executive? Can I acknowledge Martin Dunn, Director General of MPI? Dr. William Ralston, Federated Farmers President. Thank you, William, for your skills in Auckland the other night. Appreciate those. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. This is a day about celebration, in my view. When you have a look at the fantastic numbers behind me, it will really dawn on the audience and also New Zealanders how much the dairy industry has done in what is a short period of time in looking after the environment. 26,197 kilometres of fencing, excluding dairy cattle from water bodies across New Zealand, gets you on a plane from Auckland to Chicago and back. Now, farmers in just over 10 years have done that in a voluntary capacity. They've realised that they need to do more in terms of environmental mitigation, and they've stepped up to the plate and they have made a huge contribution. That is fencing wire, that is posts, that is labour, and when you add on all of the other things that follow, often riparian plantings have occurred as a result of excluding dairy stock from those water bodies. So I congratulate farmers for doing a huge amount of work in a voluntary capacity in just a short period of time. But there is more to be done. And there are still many, many challenges. But just to also touch on a couple of the other numbers that we're here to acknowledge this afternoon, about 9,500 nutrient budgets. That's where farm advisors have come on farm and sat down around the kitchen table or the office of farmers and worked out what are their nutrients that are coming onto the farm and how can they measure and monitor those better. There's a huge amount happening, almost 100% now of bridges and culverts. And in my view, farmers are stewards of the land. They want to leave their land in a better place than when they first took it over. I'm a farmer myself, and I want to leave our farm in a better place environmentally for my children and ultimately my grandchildren. And we shouldn't forget that consumers are demanding more of our farmers here in New Zealand. And when I talk about consumers, that's not just domestic consumers, that's international consumers as well. They are a lot closer to the farm gate, actually inside the farm gate, than what they ever have been before. That's because of technology and smartphones. So they look at New Zealand and they realise that we've got a few challenges in the environmental space, and numerous reports that have come out recently on water quality acknowledge that. But actually, when you unpick these reports, they don't just blame farmers or agriculture. They actually say it's not just all about agriculture. It's about urbanisation. It's about industrial growth as well. So we're all in this together. And in my view, it's pointless playing the blame game and looking over your shoulder and going, it's your fault, or it's your fault, or it's your fault. We're all in this together. That's why this document is about transparency. It's about public reporting. It's about farmers stepping up to the plate with Dairy New Zealand and all of the industry bodies that are involved across the dairy companies here in New Zealand are keen to do more. And I guess when we think about some of the challenges that we face in the next stage of doing more, the government has set an aspirational target of making our rivers and streams and lakes 90% swimmable by 2040. And we know that that is a hell of a challenge. Now we're having a discussion with our dairy support farmers, with our beef farmers on lowland farms up and down the country. We know that that will require 56,000 kilometres of fencing to exclude these cattle from water bodies. That makes that number there of 26,197 seem a little bit smaller than 56,000. We know that that will cost farmers about $370 million. That is a big investment over the next decade or so that farmers are going to have to make. And when I move around the country, actually farmers get the fact that they want to do more about reducing E. coli. Now we've got a challenge of nitrates and phosphates. Now we are investing through the Land and Water National Science Challenge about $98 million over a decade, and they are doing a lot of work in this space. We as government are investing in primary growth partnerships to do with fertiliser, with Ravensdown and Balance. And it comes on to the next aspect that I want to talk about very briefly, which is about having the technology. The average age of our dairy farmers is about 48. The average age of our farmers across the country is about 58. We have got some of the most sophisticated farmers in the world. The government is investing about $2 billion in rolling out ultra-fast broadband. We've just announced UFB2 for our smaller towns. We've got another announcement on rural broadband 2 and mobile black spots that we'll be announcing soon. So we are doing a huge amount in making our farms, our orchards, a lot more accessible to technology. The way that we are going to provide the solutions to these challenges is with technology. Yes, it's more in terms of scientific investment, but it's actually tools in the toolbox for our farmers to open the lid and go, yes, okay, I need to record, I need to monitor, I need to measure more. Just the other day, I was down having a look at the Managed Aquifer Recharge program in South Canterbury, just south of Ashburton. That's where the government and others have stepped up to the plate, taking some water out of the old stockwater races and putting it into one of the leakiest dams that you could ever find in the southern hemisphere. As a result of that water flowing out of this leaky dam, it's reducing nitrates and it's helping to recharge the aquifers. The reason I raise that is because when I was there, I had a very short presentation from Lincoln Agritech. One of their designers has designed a probe that will measure nitrates down the wellhead, cost about $5,500, $6,000 to take to market shortly. Currently, the cost of that probe is about $30,000. So there's an example where technology will change the behaviour. And every year, I'm very privileged and honoured to speak to the dairy industry environmental leaders that come to Wellington for a couple of days. And there's about 300 of them that take their time to come to Wellington, to talk to leaders, to actually sell their story. And in my view, farmers don't do that well enough. We need to get on the front foot. We need to be loud. We need to be proud of all of the fantastic work that our farmers have done. And my challenge to those farmers that are environmental leaders, they need to be talking to their local communities. And when you think about the great work that's happening, catchment by catchment in Canterbury, and when you provide the tools in the toolbox to make those changes on individual farms, it's my belief that we will continue to see positive outcomes from this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Guy. It certainly is a time to be excited and proud of what the dairy sector and our farmers have achieved. I'm Alistair Boddy, Chair of the Dairy Environment Leaders Group, also known as DELG, representing the partners involved in the Sustainable Dairying Water Accord. We include representatives from farmers, dairy companies, central government, regional councils and the Federation of Maori Authorities. and collectively we have provided the oversight to this accord. It's a voluntary accord containing a number of commitments that were agreed to 3 years ago, and it's fair to say that we're excited to be here today to share these Year 3 results, and remember therefore the 15-16 year with you. It's fair to say that dairy is on a journey, and we all acknowledge that there's more to be done, a work in progress, if you like. Today is a day to look at the future, but also reflect on what has been achieved in a relatively short period of time. So, to the results of what 11,400 farms, farmers, farm staff, processing companies, and many others have achieved. All results have been independently and robustly audited. No mean feat, considering what's actually involved to do this. I'm a farmer myself, and I can tell you from personal experience that achieving these tangible benefits on farm is not easy or done very quickly. Firstly, and most importantly, 97.2% of dairy waterways have all cattle excluded from them. To give context, as Minister Guy has pointed out, that's just under 27,000 kilometres of dairy waterways that are now fenced to prevent cows getting in or even near them. 99.4% of 44,386 regular stock crossing points on dairy farms have bridges or culverts to protect the waterways. Now, many of you will have heard these or similar figures before and may discount them because of this. However, getting cows out of the water is critical to improving water quality and central to this accord. From a farmer point of view, this can be difficult, expensive, and time-consuming, yet it has been achieved. 5,701 dairy farms have installed water meters, well on the way to reaching the target of 85% in 2020. Over $10 million has been spent on environmental initiatives and farmer support programs through the accord. New tools have been created to help farmers with riparian planting, and 9,500 nutrient budgets were processed to help farmers manage their nutrients on farm, as well as over 130 rural professionals certified as nutrient management advisors. And finally, and certainly not of least importance, significant non-compliance of dairy effluent was dropped to the lowest on record at 5.2%. It is our expectation that in time this will be zero or very close to it. We can be in no doubt that we're on a journey and that dairy farmers have achieved some amazing things. And I want to take this chance to thank everyone involved, all the Accord partners, including the milk companies, DairyNZ, and the many, many others. Without this collective passion, will, and vision, we may not have achieved these tremendous results to date. And remember, this is a work in progress, and we have not finished yet. Now, next you'll hear from Dr. Tim Mackle, the Chief Executive at DairyNZ, about what the environment means to dairy farmers and why this accord is so important. Tim.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Alistair. Look, as Alistair said, I'm Tim Mackle, I'm Chief Executive of DairyNZ, and I'm also passionate about dairy and about the environment. I'm actually heading towards 25 years in my career in the dairy industry now. and a lot longer if you count growing up on a dairy farm as a kid. And I have to say that this accord and what farmers have achieved and the partners would rank right up there at the top in terms of things that I'm most proud of to be part of the sector. It really is a fantastic achievement. It's got to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, mobilisations on behalf of the environment that we've ever witnessed in this country, quite frankly. In fact, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find any initiative globally in terms of agricultural sectors where so many have got together with a common goal and achieved quite a lot. So we're very proud of it. Now, there are a few farmers in the audience who are a lot more, I guess, qualified than I am to speak about what this has meant on the farm. But I have the job of touching on that and adding a bit of perspective to the numbers that Minister Guy and also Alistair have raised and outlined with you. As you know, the dairy sector is, and particularly our farmers, it's a 24-hour job. It never stops, and of course, it really doesn't work if we don't have the land and water and animal welfare and our people all working together, and they have to be at the top of the priority list. And producing food, not only for our country, but for the world, is about economics, but that just doesn't work if we don't get that balance right, and this is an acknowledgement of that. Be in no doubt the dairy sector cannot function without clever, innovative science and research to support practices on farm that do protect our waterways and land. Farming practices have changed over the years, and what was normal practice even 10 years ago, let alone when I was a kid, has evolved greatly. And the science really has developed what we know, and we have a far better understanding, of course, at the moment of nutrient, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, and their impacts on waterways. And it's important to note that dairy will keep changing and evolving our practices as we do learn more from the research that's going on. And there is a lot being funded by farmers themselves through the likes of DairyNZ and also government. The Water Accord is a great example, I think, of applying science to the protection of waterways, keeping cows out of the waterways, and also applying cutting-edge effluent technology and management systems. So as well as the fences and the bridges that Minister Guy and Alistair have talked about, each farm does have its own effluent management system, and it accounts for about 70%, we think, of the total over $1 billion that farmers invested in the last several years in initiatives around this accord. Now, they are efficient, and it does handle manure and urine and can convert that into fertiliser to help grass grow. So, look, there's a good story there as well. The fact that most dairy cows are all excluded from dairy freshwater lakes and streams and rivers means that the sector has converted talk into action. And we've got to remember, as we've just heard, almost 97% of dairy waterways do not have animals in them now. They are excluded, and that's fantastic. That is a fantastic story. And you've heard the stats. Minister Guy talked about heading over seas and back. Well, another local way of looking at it is the fencing would stretch between Bluff and Cape Reinga 12 times. So it couldn't have happened without farmers voluntarily engaging in it, and they have spent, we think, around $90,000 per farm on average to protect the waterways. It also couldn't have happened without the milk companies, as just pointed out, and also the PGP, Transforming the Dairy Value Chain program. It's a 7-year program, and it's about working collaboratively to support science and also training to build capability in the dairy sector around these issues. So look, in that sense, it couldn't have happened without the government. And I do want to take the opportunity to acknowledge Minister Guy and also Martin MPI for their support in that particular program, because it actually has been instrumental in helping us get through this challenge and will do so in the future. So I do want to leave you with one thought. Effectively, the Accord is a rock-solid commitment by dairy farmers to every New Zealander that they are taking action and will continue to do so, to play our part in returning rural waterways to a swimmable state. Of course, many of the waterways running through dairy farms are already swimmable, but no one is in any doubt that more needs to be done, and we're up for that. This is dairy's promise to New Zealand. Thank you.